Thanks, Teresa. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call today's council meeting to order. Today, it's June 21st. If I could have a motion to, actually, my apologies. I see that there's already a few items that have been added to the agenda. So the first corrections we have, the following items were removed from the originally published agenda as they were added in error. So item 12.2.1. That's staff report ZNPL 2022013. That's an application that was received to change the zoning from urban residential type 1 R1B with a holding to urban residential type 2 to permit 6 semi-detached units. As well, item 12.5.2 on the originally published agenda was removed as it was added in error. Now, in terms of additions, the following items have been added. Item 4.2, that's a closed session report regarding multi-year procurement contracts that was circulated in advance of the meeting. Item 4.4, closed session litigation matters update. Item 12.3.1, staff report, Norfolk Haldeman water supply agreement was added to the agenda. And 12.5.3 on the originally published agenda was renumbered 12.5.2 in the staff report CS 22-128 SCORE Regional Short Line Rail Project was added. Are there any other additions? Go
ahead. Through the chair, sorry. Councillor Vanden Driesch has to leave early, so she has requested that her motion be moved up to after closed session so it can be dealt with while she's still in attendance, if that's possible.
That sounds good to me. Any other further additions? Okay, seeing none, if I could have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as amended. Councillor Vanden Driesch, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? That's carried. Any declarations of pecuniary interest this morning? Okay, seeing none, then we have 4 items to go into closed session for. If I could have a motion that council enter into closed session at 9:03 a.m. to discuss the following matters. 4.1 OLT case number OLT 22-003453 legal advice West Corner Highway 3 and Cockshut Road in Renton. 4.2 multi-year procurement contracts. 4.3 Dover Wharf update verbal, and 4.4 litigation matters update. Pursuant to sections 239 E, F, and K of the Municipal Act 2001, as amended as the subject matter pertains to litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. 2001. Mover and seconder, Councillor Taylor, thanks. Seconded by Councillor Michelle. All those in favor? And that is carried.
Through the chair, we just need 2 minutes, please.
Welcome to Passionate Folks, a vlog and video series about the people of Norfolk. People that are involved in our community, people that bring a lot of energy. So this is about a conversation, this is about their story. So welcome to episode 3. Welcome to Passionate Folks. I'm Emily. I love to dig in people's lives, ask questions, and learn about people's passion. Today I'm here with Adam. Hi, Adam.
Hi, how are you doing, Emily?
Great. I'm happy that you're here, taking the time to sit down with me today. So I've known you for a little bit, you know, small community, but people that don't know you. Tell me a little bit more about yourself.
So my name's Adam Van Passen. I grew up here in Norfolk County. I was born onto a farm and I got to work on that farm growing up, which was a great learning experience. From a young age, I got to understand what hard work was and what it was to be close to nature. So that was very cool for me. Growing up like that, my dad also was a counselor for Haldeman, Norfolk, and he had a big part in shaping what is today Norfolk County. So I got to see that, and watching him and experiencing him work through that really sparked an interest in me for the county and what it could become.
Great. So not like the typical kids. We hear most high schoolers like just ready to get out of their hometowns and go explore the city and something else, and it doesn't sound like that's your story.
Not at all. I heard a lot of kids saying that they wanted to move on to bigger, better things, and I just really didn't have that feeling. I always thought the biggest, best things were here in Norfolk to start.
So I asked you to pick a location today, and you bring me to a place that I don't know very well in Norfolk.
Yeah.
So tell me about where we are and why you picked it.
This is a very cool spot. I know a lot of people drive by it, maybe on their way to Long Point or into Port Rowan, but this is Boose Harbor. So I grew up on Boose Harbor. My best friend, his family owned this place, so I grew up here hanging out, relaxing, boating, going out fishing, going out hunting. I worked here for a while. I did some volunteer work for the Shriners Club here, doing some chicken barbecues, so I really got to experience Norfolk and how community comes together. There's a lot of people that take up their summer residence here in trailers, and it's very cool to see all these people that are coming from other places in Ontario to enjoy what Norfolk has to offer. So it's just very cool to see that and experience it. One very cool fact about this place is that Boose Harbor has the largest amount of indoor boat storage on boathouses for all of the world.
The world?
Yes.
Wow, that is crazy. This little place.
Yes, absolutely.
Very cool. Something to be proud of.
I would absolutely say so.
So we've been talking about nature, and we spend lots of time outside. You bring me to a boating place where you like to fish and spend time. So tell me about your passion. Obviously there's a connection somewhere there.
Yes, absolutely. Especially recently with everything that I've been seeing happen in the world, I'm very passionate about the earth. So I want the earth to be a good place. I want Norfolk County to be a good place. Everything that I love about Norfolk has to do with outside, has to do with nature, has to do with clean water, clean air, fresh trees, everything. So I just really think it's important to take care of everything that we have here in Norfolk County, and it's not an easy thing to do. So
No. We all have to start and do our part. That's the thing, right?
Absolutely, and I'm doing my best, but it does get very difficult. It's easy to make the change, it's just hard to start.
So we were talking earlier about, doing things around Norfolk and visiting places. I know you're a busy guy, like you work, you're a volunteer firefighter. So what do you do to de-stress and relax?
I would say my number one most favorite thing to do to de-stress would be to just get out on Lake Erie. Whether that's ice fishing, fishing, boating, swimming, relaxing. It's just such an amazing place. As soon as you get out on Lake Erie and you get away from shore a little bit, you just come out to this different zone.
Other than this place, like where else do you like to visit in Norfolk County? Where else? What's one of your other favorite spots?
I would say that my favorite spots in Norfolk County would have to be broken into two categories. One is nature, being Lake Erie, boating, all of that kind of fun outdoor stuff. And I also like Norfolk's bounty. Before, maybe you had to go out to a place far away to enjoy all of this beer, wine, food, amazing service, but now we can just go out the back door, and before I can drive for 10 minutes, I found something that I can go to locally that's amazing.
A couple of winery on the way here.
Yeah, it has passionate folks in it doing things. Like, it's just great. All around here, there's so many amazing things you can do, and it's just growing, so I love seeing that.
I thank you so much for your time. I love your connection with nature and what you want to do as far as your passion with the environment. I'm in line. We need to come together for this to happen, so hopefully we can inspire a few people with this little conversation here. So
Absolutely.
Thanks, Adam.
Cool. Thank you very much
We'll
for
see
your
you
time.
soon.
Yeah.
Welcome to Passionate Folks, a blog and video series about the people of Norfolk. It's about people that have high energy, that get involved in their community. We sit down, have a conversation, learn about their passions. Welcome to the next episode. Hello, I'm Emily. Welcome to Passionate Folks. I love to ask questions and discover people's passion and having great conversations. So today I'm here with Nick. Hi, Nick.
Hi.
Might be you here, might be you invited me to a great place. I got to know you a little bit more today, but I'd love you to tell us a little bit more about you.
Sure. So I'm Nick Cranks. I was raised in Langton, and I live in St. Williams now.
So Norfolk County boy.
Yeah, Norfolk County boy. Yeah. If we're going to put a location on it, and if you're asking someone where you're from, this area, you always say Norfolk County. Unless you're from Port Dover.
Did you say Port Dover?
And then you say Port Dover for some reason.
I invited you to pick a place. So tell us where we are and why you decided to invite me here.
So we're at where I work, Blueberry Hill Estates, which my family owns as well too. This is where I spend probably my entire day every day of the year. So we're located on the patio here, and we're basically overlooking the patch. And you probably cannot see from the camera because it's on the other side of the camera, but the lake is just on the other side.
I love to hear about people's passion, and I know you have a lot of projects going on, and I want to dig further into your passion. So what do you think really stands out for you? What are you really passionate about?
So day in, day out, I'm typically making wine or working the field, so that's something I'm really passionate about. I'm also the president of the Ontario South Coast Wineries and Growers Association, which encompasses Norfolk along with other neighboring counties. And so I'm really passionate about trying to raise awareness of this area for growing grapes and making world-class wines.
And so winemaking, like what draws you to it? Why are you making your whole life right now? And why winemaking in Norfolk County?
Well, I guess you could say it's one of the best agricultural products you can make.
I agree.
It's something that you can preserve, and like even after the crop is finished, you still have to work with the crop that you were working out in the field all year round. And when you put it in a glass of wine, you have memories of how that year was when that wine was made.
So it sounds like you spend a lot of time on this farm, a lot of time on this like part of Norfolk County, but if you have time to de-stress, where would you go? What do you do in Norfolk?
I definitely like going to the beach. So, getting out in the water when it's a hot day is truly nice.
Not too far from Turkey Point, I guess. You can roll down the hill.
Yeah, we got excellent restaurants here too, so which is pretty amazing for the per capita, the amount of people that live in Norfolk County, that we have enough restaurants that you can count them more than your two hands or whatever, which is
really
nice.
Good ones too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's so exciting to see how our agro-tourism industry is developing in our area, and it's kind of cool to see you guys like working together and really promoting this area.
Well, when you think about farming from what it was in the past, it has to evolve over time though to make it an industry that can support itself. It allows people to be able to figure out ways to succeed or have succession in their family, to go to that next generation, so that way we can have countless more generations of those families living in Norfolk County, growing the things that their grandparents grew.
And keeping the passion alive.
Exactly, yeah.
I thank you so much for your time, Nick. I thank you for inviting me in this beautiful place. I cannot wait to explore some more. And
It's too bad it's not pizza day.
No, I heard that was really good. I'll come back. I'll be back. Thanks, Nick.
No worries. Cheers.
Welcome to episode 6 of Passionate Folks. This is a vlog and video series about the people of Norfolk. We sit down, have a conversation, hear about their passion and what lights them up. I'm excited to introduce the next guest. Welcome to Passionate Folks. My name is Emily. I love to connect with people, having some conversation and learning about people's passion. Today I'm sitting here with Sue. Hey Sue.
Yeah, you bet.
I'm so glad that you took the time to come out and have a conversation with me.
Well, thanks for asking me.
Yeah, so for people that don't know you, can you start with introducing yourself, where you live, where you're from, and a little bit more about you?
Okay, sure. My name is Sue Downs. I live in Simcoe, born and raised here. And I work for the Simcoe Reformer newspaper and started there way back in 1988. So, and loved my job, loved Norfolk County, and was really pleased that Emily asked me to be part of this. I think.
So far, so good.
So far, so good. Yeah, so far, so good.
Great. So, as always, Sue, I ask a guest to pick a location so we can explore it and discover a hidden gem in Norfolk County. And this one is a little bit different. So, tell me where we are and why you brought me here.
So, we're at Norfolk County Fair. We're at the bottom of the Junior Farmers Building and here.
So, why do you pick the fair? What's so special about the fair to you?
I think for myself, Norfolk County Fair is like one of the largest events that happen in Norfolk County every year. It's always been near and dear to my heart. Like I think so many childhood memories. It's all about tradition. For us growing up, at my age, I've only missed one fair in all of my years, and that was when I was in Timmins. So I just love the fact that you can come to the fair. There's so much excitement. There's always lots of things to see and do. Like family would come home during Thanksgiving weekend, and I think that still happens today, right? Like it's all about tradition and all about community, which I feel like I'm pretty passionate about.
Yeah, so I was just going to ask you a little bit more about your passion. I see you a lot being involved in the community and supporting local businesses, and it seems like it's really important to you and close to your heart.
I like to promote local as much as possible. So whenever we go out for dinner, a lot of people go, "Do you ever stay home?" Because you'll constantly see posts on social media, on Facebook or on Twitter, and it's like, we're at the Barrel, we're doing this, we're at Long Point Eco Adventure, we're,
It's so good that you're taking the time to promote those local businesses and support. And I remember when I started my business, you were one of the big supporter of sharing what I was doing. And I know a lot of people have felt the love that you give to entrepreneurs. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. But it does make you feel good, and it is important. I feel that if we can support each other as much as possible. Like it's again, it's all about giving back.
So Norfolk County and specifically Simcoe has changed quite a lot. We are moving in a different direction in our county. So from you like growing up in Simcoe and in the downtown, and what's happening around now, like what's the highlights for you?
Okay, well, the highlight growing up was always, going downtown on the weekend. People that are watching this that are my age would remember you used to be able to go to the Tartan restaurant and Woolworths and different places down there. But I think a lot of the exciting thing that I see now is a lot of the collaborations that are happening within Norfolk County. And one that stands out is, Burning Kiln and then Long Point Eco. And then along came, my buddy Dusty and the guys from Hometown Brew. And then now Joy Cafe out there. So it's really cool to see a lot of the business people working with each other and stuff like that too. So that sort of stuff.
You don't have to go too far. You show up there and everything that you love is right there.
It's like a lot of renewed, it just seems like a lot of positive things are happening within our community, and it's really good to see.
So I know you have a pretty high-stress job, so maybe tell me a little bit more about what you do to relax, calm down, and look after yourself.
Okay, well, I do like to garden. I find that, if you're kind of stressful in a stressful day, you get out there and take it out on all the weeds in your garden. I also like to, walk along the trail from Davis Street and then head out along the 14th or whatever.
Okay.
And you can, it's heading right towards Waterford, so you can actually walk from there right into Waterford. I've got a dog that keeps me pretty busy, and then a group of really good friends that we are going out with each other all the time and stuff like that.
I know you have a lot of favorite spots in Norfolk, so we already named a few, but if you have a day off and you want to explore Norfolk County, is there one specific place that you actually love to visit that you feel just at home?
I would say for myself, it depends on the day. So if it's just something that I want to go and do a walk or whatever, it would be my trail on the 14th, because it is kind of private. There's not, you run into a lot of the same people and stuff like that. I also like going down to Dover, and I'll sit at the cafe and kind of look around there.
People watch a little bit.
Yeah, that sort of stuff, and then even take off and go to the pier. Actually, my mom has a bench there for my grandfather, who was a fisherman down in Port Dover as well too. So it's kind of nice.
Memorial benches.
Yeah.
Very cool. It sounds like pretty much everything you need is right here.
Why should I go to why do I need to go out of town? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff here that, right in Norfolk that we need to use, yeah.
I'd love to hear your passion for Norfolk and how well you support the local businesses and just, I see you at fundraiser and you're always involved in your group of friends and supporting whatever is happening in the county. So we need more of you, Sue, and Norfolk. So thank you so much for joining me today and having this little chat. I'd love to get to know you better and hear more about your passions.
Well, thanks very much for allowing me the opportunity. It was great. Thank you.
Welcome to episode 7 of Passionate Folks. This is a blog and video series about the people who live right here in Norfolk. I sit down with them, have a conversation, ask them about their stories, their passions. I'm excited to present the next guest. Welcome to Passionate Folks. I'm Emily. I love to ask questions and get to know people better. Today I'm here with Dan. Hey Dan.
Hey there, how are you?
Great.
Excellent.
Might be you stop by for coffee?
Yeah, well, nice of you to have me. I'm really delighted.
So we already had a good chat, but for people that don't know you, can you tell us a little bit more about you, where you live, and what you do?
Yeah. My name's Dan Fewings, and I was a Simcoe boy, an SCS grad growing up. From 0 to 18, I lived in Simcoe. And then I think I lived in Brantford for a year, lived in Dover for a bit, and then followed a gal up north to Peterborough, or Lindsay, and I ended up spending 28 years there teaching high school. Loved every minute of it. A bunch of different experiences. And when I retired in 2014, I thought, my ma's not doing so well down there. It's going to need some attention. And also followed a friend here, and bingo. And now I live just outside of Simcoe, in between Simcoe and Victoria on Highway 24.
Great, I'm so glad you took time to have this little chat. I want to go know more about you today, and I'm going to be asking some questions.
Yeah.
But first I ask you to pick a spot that means something to you in Norfolk. So maybe start by telling us where we are and why you picked this place.
Well, I love this place, not only for the food, although in my new machination I'm more careful what I eat, so I only have one crepe a week. But I love this place because Jim and Penny, the owners, are good friends. They've hired me to play here. They give the artists freedom to be a little zany here. They're good to their staff. They run a good ship. And I love the outside in the summer. It's rocking. They do a great job getting lots of music in. I think they have music all July, August, and September, like a whack of things. And I also, you know, a few neat experiences sort of got born out here. I have a character, I do the song chef, and they were like the first ones to say, oh, you've got to come in and do it. So.
I love what you're talking about. Like, you're involved in so many things into your retirement that you seem to really enjoy the art. Is that the main thing you're passionate about, or?
Well, you know, I like joy spreading, and the most rewarding thing I think I do is my gal Rosie and I, after we had a trip to Newfoundland, and after I did a tour of Newfoundland, we picked up on the kitchen party notion, and so we have a little duet called the Kitchen Party Orchestra, and we go to the seniors' homes and the respite center in Hagersville and Simcoe, and we give them the folks their instruments to play with us, so they're part of it. They're getting some exercise, and like that is joy spreading 101.
So spent a lot of time away from Norfolk, decided to come back to Norfolk in your retirement. So tell me, like, if you don't have a gig, if you're not involved in something, like, what do you do to hang out, to relax? Where do you like to go?
Well, I love the geography, so I always like going down to one of the many shores while they still exist.
Yeah, so Port Mercy's a little small this year.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah. You know, I love, and
are you a beach guy, or?
Not in the summer, I'm not, but I am, you know, sort of going to the water for answers kind of a guy. Okay. You know what I mean?
Yep.
The Leonard Cohen dimension. And so Long Point was always like hugely special as a kid, you know? I spend a lot of time at the Simcoe Little Theater. That's a great organization, and they're doing fun and they're welcoming, and so I'm going to play coming up that I'm doing. And
you don't seem to have too much downtime, like you seem to keep pretty busy.
Keeps me out of the housework, that's for sure.
Out of the horse.
He's all busy making some ass right now, you know, sewing, you know.
Yeah.
And so.
Is it hard to get artists to come and play here, or? Are they curious about wanting to see Norfolk and see what this is about?
You know what? Like more people, like house concerts are amazing too. Like and I was never a musician on the road. I did 2 1-month tours with a student, and I had a buddy of mine, Jimmy Boskill, who was a student of mine. He said, "When you retire, we're going on tour." My son is in a band, the May Hemingways, so he traveled lots east. So he booked us from Peterborough to Newfoundland, 24 gigs and 26 nights. Both, you know, but you make, you know, as a musician, you make way more at a house concert and play more concerty, less with people listening. No. People love to play, right? So oftentimes people think you need the applause as much as you need the money. Yeah? And many people are lined up. So it's like, you don't want to do it? That's okay. I've got Tiny Talent Time and his brother here that'll play for you, you know? And so people, that's why it's so nice to be in a place like this where you know that their entertainment budget is a really significant amount of money. And there are a lot of places in town here. The 211 does it as well. Even the Norfolk has a whack of music, and it's getting bigger around here with all the, you know, with the craft beer industry, the wine industry. All those places are looking for some entertainment to get their clients in. So I think it's, you know, it's going to be significant. It's just a tricky game.
So music, obviously a big part of your life?
It is a big part of my life, yeah. I think I started when I was 13. My brother handed me a John Prine album, the very first one with him sitting on the hay bale and a guitar, and showed me the C, F, and G chords, and I never had a lesson after that.
You just learned on your own?
I just learned on my own. Guitar has, and stringed instruments often have tablature. Yep. Especially ones that have frets, so it's a grid really, so they can it's easy on notation to put a number 1 on a 1, you know you're at the first, so it's an easier system. But what happened was I was working in the teachers union. I had been seconded out of teaching for a couple of years. The head of music was leaving to become a minister, and he said, Dan, can you teach kids how to play guitar? And I said, absolutely. And I said, now Larry, you know I don't read music, right? And, you don't? And I said, no, but I'll buy tablature. So at any rate, made it work. And down the road it was funny because Jimmy Boskill, who was a wizard player, doesn't read music either. He had auditioned for this art school, and I was sitting at me, they weren't gonna let him in because he didn't read music. And I said, I should let you folks know, as you know, I don't read music. And I said, if you're not letting this kid into the program, give me 2 weeks notice, because I'm not going to be the guitar teacher that wouldn't take him in. So you got to keep it moving.
Is that one of your favorite instruments?
Yeah, this is, it's a Latin instrument. It comes from the Andes, so Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, Chile. It's usually used in then I found, being sort of a folky dokey player too, it's like a good bluegrass instrument too. And it's like in the day and age of cutbacks, when the bluegrass bands start firing the banjo player and the mandolin player, you get both with one.
Show up with this one, you're good. You're good at drumming gig.
That's right.
Perfect.
And this is a charango, and it is higher up. So I started with one of these. And then I'm a big fella, so it's, you know, and you don't need that strap, it sticks right in your belly button. Like you couldn't peel that off with a groper.
All right, so you do some improv.
I do. So like, give me a title to a song never before written. It can be anything.
Let's go with the Bikini Crepe, I guess.
Bikini Crepe?
We're here, the Crepe House.
Well, it's more appropriate on a day like today to not sing about martini. So let's think while we're in the land of sand about a crepe martini. No pina colada beside you now. No, it's done somehow. Here comes the customer now. He's probably gonna order the crepe bikini. Now the thing about the bikini crepe, it's teeny weeny, it's how they make. I'm not sure if it's a Speedo sauce, but it's nice all the same. Oh, it's teeny weeny, but it's my favorite, that old crepe bikini. Yes, sirree, I think he's making me one now. And it might be true that you can't wait for your bikini crepe, but that's okay. Got time on my hands. Right on.
All right, cheers, Dan.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining me. Have a coffee. That was
Absolutely.
awesome.
Right on.
Love it.
Good. Thank you very much. Great. See you later. Thanks, Drew.
Great, guys.
No, it's not possible. No, I cannot tell you what to say.
What if there was a place just outside the hustle and bustle, where the beauty of nature was right at your doorstep, inviting you to join in the fun?
Good job, guys. Got it.
What if there was a place where the landscapes were as diverse as the bounty they produced? And the term field fresh was more than just a marketing ploy. It was a way of life. What if there was a place where history and heritage shared the stage with technology and innovation, and success happened without much fanfare, on back roads, nurtured by wise and hardworking people? What if there was a place as lush as an ancient garden that was, for centuries, a place to explore, live, and play? a place of promises and hope. A landscape filled with possibility. And what if this wasn't just a place to escape to, but a place you could settle into? What would you call such a place? Well, we call it Norfolk County.
I am Tom Pursley. I work at Titan Trailers. I manage the shop and design, build, program robot cells on the floor to hand off to operators to build trailer components and assemblies. I knew I always wanted to work with my hands growing up as a kid. I never wanted to be stuck behind an office doing paperwork for the rest of my life, and it really interests me to build something and see the final result when you're done.
My name's Angela Simon and I work for Annex Business Media. We are a trade magazine publisher. We produce 65 trade magazines for a diverse industries, so everything from aviation to firefighting to design engineering, manure. We have a very diverse set of magazines that we produce. I'm the production manager and I oversee the creative department in 2 divisions in Simcoe and in Toronto. We have 14 designers that lay out and design the magazines. When I started in this industry probably 26 years ago, everything was hand done. Now everything's so automated, done on the computers, and that's probably been the biggest change for me.
My name's Phil Wiersma and I work for Rasson Services. We're an industrial contracting company, so we do some custom fabrication and mechanical and electrical installations and repairs. We've built large pump skids for the oil sands out west. We've done some major factory overhauls and expansions. We do some fairly large jobs for a fairly small company. I've always liked to take things apart and put them back together, and so this is just another stepping stone.
My name is John Brock Picard. I'm 20 years old and I work at Ramblin' Road Brewery Farm. Here we make 8 different kinds of Picard's Extreme kettle chips. It's all on one line. The potatoes come in from the farm and we put them in through the hopper. They get cleaned and they go through a grading table where I inspect them and cut off all the rotten spots, pick out the bad ones. And then they go through up to the cutter. They're cut into kettle chip size and they're fried and salted. I guess the best part about my job would be the sampling. When the fresh potato chips come off the line, nothing beats them.
I think young people should be strongly considering a career in manufacturing. Skilled trades, there's always going to be a large demand for that, and they're high-paying jobs. The actual job is getting better as the new technologies come into play.
The skills you need to do my job would be definitely graphic design, computer skill. If you have any kind of video or inclination to do video or any of that kind of stuff, or web design, that's also a huge asset for what we do.
I would say if you like to take things apart and put things back together, or build things from scratch, or if you have even a creative mind, manufacturing is a good way to go.
Welcome to Passionate Folks, a blog and video series about people who live in Norfolk. People that get involved in our community, people that are passionate about living here. We sit down, have a conversation, and learn about their stories. Welcome to Passionate Folks. I am Emily. I love to connect with people. I love to ask questions and get to know people better. So today I'm sitting here with Scott. Hey.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So Scott, to start, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, who you are, where you're from, and where you live?
My name's Scott McCrae. I'm a chef here in Norfolk County. I'm the chef at David's Restaurant in town, and I live in Port Dover, or just outside. And yeah, all my family's from Port Dover. I moved here in high school and left for a bit and moved back, and now
Made it your home.
Made it my home. Yeah, it was my home before. I realized it was my home while I was away, and yeah.
Came back to the roots.
Yes, exactly.
So as I do with every guest, I ask you to pick a place in Norfolk County for us to do this interview.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me where you invited me and why you picked this place.
Well, we're here at Matt's Fruit Barn, just outside of town, and it was a pretty easy choice. I know we wanted something that was kind of related to what I do. We were also talking about how diverse Norfolk County is as far as things that grow here, and it's like #1 for so many different fruits and vegetables. And one of the first things I always think about is just, especially considering what job I have, is food. Norfolk County produces so much food and grows so much food. This property here that Christine and Jess and the family have, they grow more things here than I can even think of. Like, you look
It's a
around.
good representation of Ontario's garden when
Exactly.
you visit this place, isn't it?
Yeah. This is kind of just like a little example of what this area has to offer.
So I love to dig in people's passion and see what lights them up. And I'd love to know about you. I think I may have a little bit of an idea, but what are you most passionate about?
That's a tough one. I think definitely I'm passionate about food and what I do. That's something that since I was young, I've always associated memories. Like a lot of people with songs or with like smells or things, it'll just trigger a memory. And a lot of my early childhood memories have to do with food. There'll be a weird little thing that I remember, like, oh, that was my first like black olive I ever had, or that was like, there's a lot of memories that kind of are associated with that.
Big connections to
Big
food
ones,
and
yeah. Like
stories.
the mulberry tree in my grandparents' backyard, and we just stand for hours underneath just like eating mulberries. And
So I know you work long hours. It's a busy season for you in the restaurant. When you have some downtime, where do you like to go in Norfolk? Where do you like to have a good time?
Well, I'm lucky that all my family lives here. I moved away for a while. I moved to the city. I was in Yukon for a bit. Just being back and being able to see family is I don't get to see them enough still, but it's definitely a big reason why I came back and something I like to do. Friends too, just hanging out on local patios or at their house or watching Leafs games. Well, I've always been kind of, from my grandma when I was a kid, I got really into like birds. Yeah, so I mean, there's binoculars in the truck right now with the bird book.
Go to Long Point or what?
Well, of course, like that's Long Point. Well, around here, like I'm lucky I live out of town. You can drive out and see the tundra swans at Long Point when they come through. It's really a mecca for that if you're into that. I'm a bit of a weird, obsessive record collector, and I've got a lot of records.
Do you like to see live music around? Is there
of course.
decent bands that are around that you like to?
Oh, tons. Yeah. It's great. I mean, like a lot of my friends are musicians, and there's not a ton of downtime, but when there is, it's like sometimes just things that are just nice and relaxing. It always helps when you have like a local brewery.
And there's a lot to pick from. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of great ones. It's really exploded, especially since I moved back from Toronto about 10 years ago, and even in that time, it's the wine scene, the beer scene, the ciders, like all that has just exploded, and it's all really good. Like,
so do you think, like, just back to the winery and the brewery, like, after high school and when you wanted to leave and get to the city and get out of here and coming back and finding it like right here?
Well, even when I originally moved back, I was intended on going back to the city, and I came back and just realized that this is where I wanted to be. This is where my heart is. This is where I really belong, and I have friends there, but the friends that I have here are friends I've had since I was like in high school, right? So there's something there where there's
We live in a pretty cool place.
Yeah, it's great.
I thank you so much for your time. I love connecting with you and learning about your passions, so I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks.
My name is Jim Toombs. I'm an Associate Purchasing Specialist here at Toyotetsu, also known as TTCA. Here at Toyotetsu, we're responsible for supplying Toyota with car parts, mainly automotive frame for the Lexus, the Corolla, and other Toyota models. I started here in May of 2016. I was in welding. Here I am 2 years later, and I'm a salaried position. The job itself it's challenging. There are challenges in what I have to do every day, and for that I enjoy it. It's not monotonous day in, day out. There's new challenges that I'm confronted with and new tasks that I have to do. A high school student who's like, I'm not sure, I think this is an excellent opportunity to kind of answer that question for themselves. They can see what kind of the working world is like, as well as pick up skills. There are plenty of opportunities here. For example, for me, I was in welding, but that didn't mean I had to stay there. There's opportunities in stamping, where you'd learn different skills entirely. PC, again, the same thing, some different skills needed that you'd learn. Though we make car parts and they're welded, there are a lot of departments and areas that support that.
My name's Aaron Pace. I'm a yard manager here at Townsend Lumber. We're a sawmill that produces lumber. We make anywhere from rail ties to timber frame home products, kiln-dried lumber, which is used for wood cabinets and furniture. We also do pallet components, and we also do stakes for farming. We ship container loads to the Middle East, we ship it to Asia. We have gone to Mexico, Singapore. We've shipped to many different locations. My father has worked here for 30 years. He got me a part-time job as a summer student. I started as a regular piler, as a laborer at the entry-level position. And with hard work and dedication, I have been promoted through the system, and it took 9 years to become a supervisor. I enjoy the freedom of the job, like outside working with the heavy industrial stuff, talking to the range of customers and the way we produce things for them.
My name is Cam Kirkwood. I'm a production supervisor at Superior Essex in Simcoe. We make magnet wire and cable for the transformer industries. Our magnet wire products are found all around you that most people don't even notice, in winding motors, in alternators in your vehicles, transformers on the side of the road or on top of poles. I've been here at the company for 15 years. I started on the floor as a machine operator for 7 years, and then I did a stint in engineering for about a year, and then I moved on to production supervisor for the last 7. One of the best parts about working here is it is a build-to-order shop, so although we do make similar products every day, it's very unique. We don't always see the same orders. There's always new challenges. One of the best parts about being in manufacturing for me is the shift work. So it provides an opportunity for you to adjust to do your own life on your days off, or you can pursue other interests. A lot of people have second businesses or hobbies that they really enjoy. There is lots of opportunity to advance. There's educational assistance programs. You can continue to learn new skills and advance to a new area if you were so desire.
There's a great opportunity moving up the manufacturing sector.
Try it, because you're going to learn a lot about the working world as well as yourself.
Welcome to Passionate Folks, a blog and video series where I'll be highlighting people from Norfolk County who have a passion, who are involved in our community, who are the movers and shakers. So I'm excited to introduce every month somebody new from Norfolk that will bring you their story, their passion, and share it all with us. Come on in. All right, welcome to the first episode of Passionate Folks. I'm Emily, and I love to dig in people's life and getting to know more about them. I'm here with Jess today. Thanks, Jess, for showing up.
Thank you for having me. This is so exciting.
So just for the people that don't know you, introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit more about you and the person that you are.
Sure. Well, my name's Jess, and I grew up in Waterford, more specifically Boston, more specifically Bill's Corners. I'm a passionate Norfolk advocate. I love this area. I love theater, I love music, I love anything arts related. Also a passionate advocate for entrepreneurs in the area.
So I invite you to pick a location in Norfolk that meant something to you. So tell us where we are and why you picked this place.
All right, we are here in Simcoe Little Theater. It's on the corner of Talbot and Yonge in downtown Simcoe. And this place, Simcoe Little Theater, is a very special place to me. I spent most of my life in these walls, on that stage, behind the stage, in these seats, like everywhere in this space. It's something that theater is something that's like has always been a big part of my life since I was about 8 years old.
You mentioned to me that you also in high school, you were really involved into the drama program and all that, so.
I had walked the halls of my high school and I had seen so many pictures on the wall of different shows they had done throughout the years, but nobody was doing shows anymore. And I was like really bummed about that. So in grade 10, me and my girlfriends, we roped all our moms in. We were like, if we start doing high school shows, like, will you guys help? Will you make costumes? Will you whatever? And they all jumped in.
Involved.
Yeah.
I love that, right? Like, that's a small community, like,
that's
everybody
it.
coming in together.
And like, that's what it requires, right? Like, a show is like a mini village coming together, like making all the pieces happen.
So this community, I think the word, like, you keep repeating it, and I think what you're creating in Groundswell is that sub-community within the community, and that really stands out. So would you say this is something that you're really passionate about?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Yes, that connection,
totally.
right? Yeah.
I just think like community is everything. We're not meant to live life alone. I don't think. And I don't mean like you have to necessarily have a romantic partner to live a life, but just have people around you that get you. That you don't have to explain yourself. You know what I mean? You just walk in the room and they're happy to see you. That's it.
That's always such a good feeling. Isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah, like you just have those people that, believe in you too, right?
Yeah.
And just cheerleaders.
Yeah.
So I see, Jess, you're always involved in this community, like you're volunteering places, you really want this place to grow and thrive, and so why Norfolk, and what do you love so much about this place?
Oh man, I think, yeah, it's a really good question. It's a combination of things. I think the geography that we live in, the nature we have around us, that is a huge benefit of being in Norfolk. But it's also the people here. And that's why I'm so obsessed with community, because we have so many beautiful people who live here with ideas, with talents, with love and vision. And I think that's what excites me, is like, just because we're a small town doesn't mean we have small ideas or small impact.
I want to bring some of the music piece, because I know we've been talking a lot about the theater and acting, but I know that music is so important to you.
Yes.
And a big part of your life.
Yes.
So tell me a bit more about your maybe influences and what makes you feel alive in music.
Just like theater, I love performing music too. There's something really cool about being on stage like that. Before I came here today, I was like thinking about how alive I feel when I'm on stage. And I think that everyone kind of looks for that thing that makes them feel alive. Yeah. So for me, it's that.
Awesome. So I thank you so much, Jess, for taking the time to meet with me. There's going to be more feature of passionate, uplifting community people through this little video series. So keep watching. Thanks, Jess.
Thank you. Oh my God. This is so much fun.
Awesome.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. If I could have a motion to reconvene in open session. Councillor Huffman, thanks. Seconded by Councillor Michelli. All those in favor? That is carried. So coming out of closed session, we had item 4.1 OLT, case number OLT 22003453, legal advice on the west corner of Highway 3 and Cockshut Road in Renton. Staff direction was provided in closed session. 4.2 multi-year procurement contracts. Direction was also provided to staff and legal counsel in closed session. 4.3 Dover Wharf update. Again, direction was provided to staff and legal counsel. And finally, 4.4 litigation matter update. If I could have a motion to receive the verbal update as information. Councillor Vanden Rishi, seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? And that is carried. So we're stepping out of order just a little bit now. We're going to hear the notice of motion from last week, which was from Councillor Vanden Rishi, as she has to leave. So Councillor Vanden Rishi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. We have a notice of motion in front of us. It was read last week. I just would like to make the motion that now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to bring back a report with a brief summary of the history of the properties located on Hastings Drive, including a summary of ongoing actions and estimated costs. And further, that the staff provide recommendations for council consideration in an effort to find a viable and sustainable solution to address the environmental and safety matters going forward.
Was there any thought to adding something further along that line? I guess it perhaps could be captured in the environmental and safety matters going forward, but the county also has a number of properties that are sitting there that 37, I believe, that are not being used. And I believe there was previous direction under the old council to declare them as surplus and move forward, but that never happened. So is there anything else?
There would be consideration of that. I thought we would take it as a full and wholesome discussion on it, but it would be prudent to have part of that in this motion, yes, if that could be crafted.
Sorry, through the chair, can you repeat that, please?
Okay, that's fine then. If you're fine with it being captured in that first part.
As long as the intent is there, that we recognize what our intent is here.
And what options are available. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Any discussion on the matter? First of all, is the seconder, please. Councillor Michelli, thank you. Any further discussion on the matter? Councillor Taylor, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, I'm just wondering if we could have a proposed timeline on receiving that. I know even just doing a brief history of Hastings might be quite a bit of staff resources. So just so when residents there are reaching out to us when we might receive this information back, we have a rough timeline.
That's a good point, Councillor Taylor, especially I guess Teresa maybe or Al, if you could provide some comments on how this would be impacted if this isn't done prior to us going into lame duck, and how quickly we need to move forward with this, given there are a number of matters that are currently being litigated.
If I may, through you, Madam Chair, expecting that council was going to pass this this direction to staff today, we've already started to put some things together in terms of from my background, my history. It isn't going to be an easy report. It isn't certainly a slam dunk, and we can turn it around in a week or two, but I'm hoping we can turn it around well before the end of the summer, but hopefully well before that as well.
Anything further from council? Okay, then I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Opposed? Okay, so moving on then, we have consent item, which is number 5, 4 items of communication today. Does any member wish to pull a communication item for further discussion? That's 5.1, staff report CAO 22-088, amending bylaw establishing an office of the Integrity Commissioner. Staff report CAO 22-075, 43 Washington Street in Waterford encroachment. I don't unfortunately have the other 2 listed there, Teresa.
Through the mayor, that's actually an error in your notes. I apologize. That's on me. It's just the 2 consent items. Right?
Okay. Does any member wish to pull either? Councillor Taylor, you're going to move those, seconded by? For a question? Okay, so I'm assuming that's the Waterford matter, if you just want to go ahead with it.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Chop, I have a question just to remind myself. Do we currently have a fee for a filing of a complaint to the Integrity Commissioner?
Through the chair to Councillor Huffman, yes, we have a fee. I believe it is, I have to open the bylaw, but I think it's $150. It is a refundable fee if the complaint meets certain requirements as outlined in the bylaw. I can bring it up if you'd like me to read that.
Okay, no, that's okay. I just, I couldn't remember if what we had decided upon in terms of the amount. And I just wanted to review the fact that it was refundable if it was deemed an appropriate complaint. Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Okay, in that case, Councillor Taylor, you're moving the consent item, seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to the items of communication, there's 4 of those. Does any member wish to pull any of the communications items for further discussion? Councillor Michelli?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to pull the information memo regarding the council meeting dates. I just have a couple of brief questions about it.
The floor is yours. Let's handle that.
Thank you very much. I am just curious if through you, I think this is to our clerk. The meeting dates on October the 3rd, and I'm just trying to ask, perhaps I have some of these dates incorrect, but and I'll have to get confirmation. I think traditionally we don't meet on that Tuesday because we were at the Norfolk County Fair on that day. Unless I have the start date of the Norfolk County Fair wrong. Traditionally, we've been meeting during that cycle on Wednesday.
Through the chair, you are correct, and I think we got confused about the date there, so I would suggest that we could make an amendment to move that to the 5th.
Okay, very good, thank you. And also, I believe also no, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, that the second item I did come to a conclusion on my own, so it is just that October 3rd date that I was concerned with. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Michelli. Anything else from council? All right, noting that change, if I could have a motion to receive communications items 7.1 to 7.4 as information. Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Huffman. All those in favor? That's carried. We are moving on to item 8, the approval of minutes. We have the regular council minutes before us today. 8.1, that's the council meeting minutes from May 17th, 2022, open and closed. Are there any errors or omissions? Okay, seeing none, if I could have a motion to approve both sets of minutes as presented. Councillor Vanden Rishi, seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? That's carried. Reports of committee of the whole, item 9. We have one report of committees under this section of the agenda. Councilor Martin, we understand you would like to pull resolution number 25 regarding the lame duck bylaw for discussion and to be voted on separately. Does any councilor wish to discuss or pull any other items from the committee minutes? Okay, seeing none, then if I, did you want to handle this? Oh, I guess, did you want to handle it now, Teresa?
Through the mayor, we can accept the balance of the committee minutes and then do the resolution separate.
Okay, that's fine. In that case, then, if I could have a motion to approve the council and committee minutes, open and closed from June 14th. Councilor Michelle, seconded by Councilor Van Passen. All those in favor? That's carried. And Councilor Martin, did you wish to introduce the motion as presented in resolution number 5?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. I actually would like to introduce Teresa's earlier suggestion made to us that we send this back to staff for staff to identify a way to separate that particular item from the bylaw and come back to us next month for a vote.
Through the mayor, there would need to be a seconder for that.
Is there a seconder for Councilor Martin's motion? Councilor Michelle? Any further discussion on the matter? Okay, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that is defeated. Opposed? Motion is defeated. Moving on then, Teresa, I guess we need to present resolution 25.
Put a resolution on.
Okay, so resolution 25 read that staff report regarding the Lame Duck Council will be received for information. That bylaw 2020-21 to appoint and delegate authority to the position of Chief Administrative Officer for the duration of the 2020 municipally declared emergency be rescinded. And that council approves the lame duck delegation bylaw as set out in option 2 to delegate authority to the Chief Administrative Officer if Norfolk County Council becomes a lame duck council as per sections 275 of the Municipal Act. Correct? Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Rabbit, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that is carried. Opposed? Moving on to reports of advisory committees. We have 3 reports of committees under this section of the agenda. 10.1 Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board, May 18th, 2022. Does any councillor wish to discuss any items from the May 18th, 2022 Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board meeting? Okay, in that case, if I could have a mover and a seconder to receive the minutes as information. Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? Thank you. That's carried. 10.2 Recreation Advisory Committee minutes, May 26, 2022. Does anybody wish to pull that item for further discussion? Okay, in that case, if I could have a mover and seconder to receive the Recreation Advisory Committee meeting minutes as information. Councillor Vanden Rishi, seconded by Councillor Huffman. All those in favor? That's carried. 10.3 Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board meetings, June 15th, 2022. Any member wish to discuss any items from that meeting? Okay, seeing none, then if I could have a mover and seconder to receive the Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board meeting minutes as information. Councillor Michelle, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? That's carried. Staff reports. 11.1.1 staff report HSS 22-024. That's regarding the Haldeman Norfolk Housing Corporation regeneration activities. And hi, there you are. Welcome, Heidi. I will turn the floor over to yourself. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to members of council. The purpose of this report is to provide Norfolk Council specifically as shareholder of the Haldeman Norfolk Housing Corporation on activities related to the Housing Corporation Regeneration Master Plan and Strategic Asset Management Plan, specifically as it relates to properties in Norfolk County. I note that specifically for council because this is a report that it did not go through advisory committee. It is coming straight to Norfolk Council as it's being presented to Norfolk Council as the shareholder of the Norfolk County properties. There have been many activities taking place in order to keep the regeneration master plan and the strategic asset management plan moving forward for both counties. And so we wanted to provide an update. On page 2 of the report, there are a list of actions or activities highlighted. And I just want to point out specifically the first 2. So in relation to the affordable housing project that is slated for Ireland and DeCrue Road, social services and housing staff and Norfolk County finance staff have been working together on a full financial analysis of this project and have been working with the Haldeman Norfolk Housing Corporation and their consultants and have been meeting jointly on a monthly basis. Finance staff are doing full financial analysis, as I said, of options for both the new development and the repair and renewal option for the existing housing stock that was listed in the regeneration master plan. We are targeting to have a report for council consideration in September 2022. Item number 2 on the list, I wanted to note for Norfolk Council because it is very much tied to item number 1, and that is that there will be a report coming forward to council after the report related to the repair and renewal strategy and the new affordable housing development to gain shareholder approval of the sale of certain properties owned by the Housing Corporation that are single detached homes and semis. These are the properties that were previously identified in the regeneration master plan as items that have been identified as appropriate for sale and leveraging for the purposes of new affordable housing development. So right now, we are working with the Housing Corporation on the process and the timing of the sale of those properties. It would not be a matter of approving them one day and selling them all the next. It's a phased approach so that we don't displace any tenants. So with that, Madam Mayor, I would be happy to answer any questions from council as the shareholder.
Questions from councillors? Okay, seeing none then, if I could have a motion to receive the report as information. Councillor Huffman, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? That is carried. Next is staff report CD 22-059 zoning bylaw amendment application for 76 Evergreen Hill Road. And Brandon, I guess you're presenting from, Mohammed, you're with us as well. Welcome.
Yes, good morning through the mayor to council. We've got 3 recommendation reports before you this morning for land use amendments in Simcoe, Port Dover, and Delhi. So we have our principal planner, Mohammed, is going to provide a brief overview of the first one, and then we can go direct to Jennifer, our senior planner, for the other 2. Mohammed.
Thank you, Brandon. Good morning, Madam Mayor and the council. This is a development proposal of 15 units rental apartment in southern part of Simcoe urban area on Evergreen Hill Road. The application is for a zoning change from neighborhood commercial to residential type 5 or this small rental housing proposal. The public hearing was held on September 7, 2021. A number of issues has been discussed, and council directed staff to further work with the applicant to address these issues. I'm going to share the concept plan just to help describing this. So the principal concern was the lack of visitor parking spaces. Initially, 0 parking space was provided for visitor parking. And the member of the committee and also the councillors raised concern about potential traffic overflow for this. The second issue was about the compatibility of high density rental unit in this neighborhood. and also which is basically raised by the member of the community. The third issue was about building height compatibility compared to the surrounding buildings. And there are also some drainage concerns. So staff worked with the applicant to address these issues, and the following revisions and rationale of the proposed development has been submitted. So the first one is parking spaces. The overall building floor area is slightly reduced now to accommodate the increased number of parking numbers. So as you can see on the ground floor, the total floor area has been reduced to accommodate that. To accommodate the required parking, the unit configuration has also changed now. There are more single bed units than before, and this allowed to reduce the number of parking spaces for residential units, but also it results in increasing visitor parking spaces. The proposal also includes an overall increase of parking space from 21 to 22. The revised version proposes 5 visitor parking spaces, and now it is as per the requirement of the zoning bylaw. So there'll be no change of the zoning for the visitor parking space. The next one is compatibility of rental development and the building height compared to the surrounding areas. To understand this issue, we looked at the surrounding land use and densities. The development is along 2 collector roads, Evergreen Hill Drive and Queens Street South. And we looked at that there is a gradual increase of density from single detached houses from south, east, and west, and then to medium density developments like towns and semis. And then finally, this 4-story rental, small rental building along the collector roads. So staff believes that there is already a transition and a relative high density rental, we think that is more appropriate along the collector roads. From building height perspective, because of the building orientation, we confirmed that there will be no shadow impact to the adjacent rear yards and the buildings. And this will be further reviewed during the site plan stage. The stormwater management report indicates that the stormwater will be managed within the property before directing to municipal services. The development engineering will perform a detailed review, and stormwater runoff will not be permitted to the adjacent properties, and that will be confirmed during the site plan stage also. We have received all technical comments. Water and wastewater modeling are satisfactory. Staff is satisfied with the traffic addendum that is provided, which is basically for 18 residential units, but this proposal came to 15 units now. A holding provision is recommended to the lands and would remain in place until an agreement is executed. Water allocation will be confirmed at that time. It is staff's opinion that the proposed zoning change is consistent with the PPS and official plan policies and meet the intent and objective of the zoning bylaw. Therefore, staff recommends the zoning bylaw amendment be approved with a special provision and a holding for the reasons set out in this report. That's all for this application. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Mohammed. Questions from council? Okay, seeing none then, does somebody wish to move the staff recommendation? Councillor Rabbits, thanks. Seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? That's carried. Opposed? Abstaining? I lost Councillor Michelle. Thanks, Mohammed. So moving on to the next report is 11.2.2. That's DD 22-061, the official plan and zoning amendment application for 511 Nelson Street.
Thank you. Through the chair, would it be okay if I share a PowerPoint presentation?
Of course, Jennifer.
Thank you. So the purpose of the applications is to amend the Norfolk County Official Plan and Zoning Bylaw to recognize existing uses within the hazard land designation and zone, as well as to permit additional 4 additional dwelling units in the urban residential designation and R1A, or urban residential type 1 zone portion of the property, for a total of 9 dwelling units on the subject lands at 511 Nelson Street West in Port Dover. So the subject lands are located on the west side of Port Dover and front onto the south side of Nelson Street West. The property backs onto Lake Erie and contains a number of mature trees. The area of the subject lands is approximately 7,000 square meters with approximately 60 meters of frontage along Nelson Street West. A new hedgerow of cedars and other deciduous shrubs have been planted along the front property line. So the subject lands include 1 single detached dwelling, excuse me, multiple accessory structures, including sheds and a newly constructed garage, 3 trailers and 4 cottages. A raised vegetable garden, picnic tables, and a patio area overlooking Lake Erie are also located on the property. So the property is designated as hazard lands and urban residential in the official plan. As you can see on the slide, the green area is the hazard lands and the yellow portion is the urban residential. The subject lands are also subject to the Lakeshore Special Policy Area Secondary Plan and are located within a tourism node, and they're also located along Ontario's South Coast Scenic Route. It is important to note that where there is a conflict between the official plan or the parent OP and the secondary plan, the policies of the secondary plan will prevail. So also the subject lands are currently zoned as hazard lands and urban residential type 1. Generally, new development within the hazard land zone is not permitted unless it complies with the permitted uses and does not contain human habitation. So on the slide, I've listed the permitted uses, and they generally include, dock, pier, or wharf, a farm, which excludes any buildings, a parking lot, or similar structure that's accessory to a permitted use, or a public park, provided there are no buildings. In the R1A zone, permitted uses include single detached dwellings, bed and breakfast, home occupations, accessory residential dwelling units, and other accessory uses. So this slide illustrates the proposed development concept as submitted by the applicants, where 4 additional dwelling units are shown along the front property line. And you'll see along the east side of the property, the 4 existing cottages, and to the south, the existing single detached dwelling. So just as a quick overview, technical reports were submitted and reviewed by staff. Comments are attached in attachment B to the staff report. A public hearing was held on June 1st, 2021, as well as an applicant-led public open house on June 23rd, 2021. Detailed comments and responses are included in the staff report. It is important to note that comments of opposition and support were received by staff. Comments included concerns regarding the commercialization of the site, the built form and compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood, parking, traffic, and safety concerns, protecting views to Lake Erie, as well as property management and bylaw infractions were noted. It is also important to note that this application would increase the number of overnight, on a positive side, it was important to note that this application would increase the number of overnight accommodations and summer housing options, as well as support the local economy and specifically the tourism sector. So after review of the technical reports and feedback from the public and completing a policy review, staff cannot support the application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw as originally submitted by the applicants. Staff do not support the notion of permitting 9 dwellings on the subject lands. So therefore, after the review, staff are recommending a modified proposal, which will not recognize existing uses within the hazard land designation and zone, reduces the number of additional buildings for accommodations to 3, and suggests that the accommodations be considered accessory tourist cabins. So tourist cabins are actually defined in our zoning bylaw and mean a detached furnished building providing temporary rental accommodation for one or more individuals with cooking, eating, sleeping, and sanitary facilities provided for use by the by the vacationing public. By suggesting that the tourist cabins be accessory to the primary residential use, this would have the intent of establishing an owner-occupied site and would not recognize additional dwelling units on the parcel. The recommended zoning bylaw proposes limiting the permitted uses on the subject lands to a single detached dwelling, home occupation, and the accessory tourist cabins. So we're also, by doing that, we're recommending the removal of accessory dwelling units as permitted uses. So special provisions regarding the maximum number of accessory tourist cabins, the size, separation distance, height, distance from the property lines, and required parking are included. Staff are also recommending that recreational vehicles or similar vehicles be prohibited from parking in the required front yard. A holding provision and site plan control are also recommended. It is also important to note that as part of the site plan control process, staff will be asking the applicants, if this is approved, staff will be asking the applicants for an operation management plan. And this is to address a lot of the concerns raised by the neighbors regarding bylaw infractions. So the applicants have agreed and they think that this actually promotes a good neighbor approach to operating on the site. So on the screen, you'll see the original proposal where the applicants are seeking 9 additional dwelling units and a summarized version of the staff's recommended or modified proposal. So to facilitate the modified proposal recommended by staff, you'll see the recommendations from the staff report on the screen there. And just to summarize, staff feel that the modified proposal meets the intent of the provincial policy statement, meets the intent of the official plan, as well as the Lakeshore Special Policy Area Secondary Plan and the intent of the bylaw, and recommend that it be approved. Thank you.
I have a couple questions, Jennifer, before I turn it over to council. Can you just go back to the slide, two slides ago, I believe it just showed the request and then the change, try 8. Perfect. So can you explain, I was reading the report and I was having a little bit of trouble following along here exactly what was happening. You were on that right one. So currently there's the main dwelling plus the additional 4, correct?
Yes.
And then you're proposing removing the 4, the accessory dwelling, the additional dwellings, and changing the existing 4 to tourist cabins as well?
So through the chair, if I can maybe go back to the slide that shows the concept drawing, might be easier to explain. So on the slide, you see this red line here delineates the hazard land zone, which is to the south, and to the R1A, or the residential zone, that's to the north. So technically, these 2 cottages that exist on the site now would be non-conforming uses, because this one is partially in the hazard land and this one is in the hazard land zone. So staff would be recommending recognizing the 2 cottages that are located closer to the front of the property, because they're located within the R1A zone as accessory tourist cabins, in addition to 3 which could be placed along the front, not the 4 as shown by the applicant.
So how many years have those other cottages been there? Like, is the suggestion then that you're going to have them tear down those other ones?
Oh, no, they wouldn't tear them down. These would be considered non-conforming as per the bylaw. So if it is determined that they are legal non-conforming, so the applicant will just have to do some work to satisfy the building department if they're legally like non-conforming, and then they would be able to stay on the property. So we also have policies in the zoning. If they're there now and you don't increase the size, they can stay. So staff have no intention of saying that, you know, this one or this one have to go right now, but we don't support the increase in size or modify them. And if they, you know, turn into disrepair, then they would have to remove it at that time.
I see. Okay. So, but again, you still want to change the designation from an accessory dwelling to tourist cabins for those remaining.
For the two in the R1 zone, yeah.
So I guess part of my challenge with that, and when I remember the neighbors being here and speaking to this, was there were a number of people, if my memory serves me correctly, that lived in those on a year-round basis, which is, while we need tourist cabins, we also need housing in Norfolk County, more importantly. And so I'm sort of confused as to why, you know, there was the argument from the residents that was like, I got the impression they would be more supportive of the additional units if they knew they were going to be rented out on a long-term basis, because a number of the problems that property is having with bylaw is because it's people that are there on a short-term basis, and you know, they're there for the weekend to have a good time and so on and so forth, which is why we're seeing, you know, heightened regulation of temporary accommodations in other municipalities. What I don't want to see is that come to Norfolk County because of a couple bad apples. And so I'm sort of confused as to why we're actually going to change something that is actually going to encourage more short term, as opposed to what we should have been doing on that property is trying to stick with what it was originally on those other cabins, which was the long term component. I don't understand why. I mean, we're making it easy, or we're prohibiting, I suppose, the potential for those to be rented out on a long-term basis, which would actually minimize, you know, bylaw calls and so on and so forth, and traffic and the concerns of the neighbors.
So through the mayor, I did research those cottages that were there, and there was a bit of discrepancy as to what their long-term use was. So I think, you know, part of their history was they were rented out annually. Sometimes they were rented out by the summer, and they were historically also rented out by the week. So there is little documentation that we had internally about them ever being used as a permanent residence. So they've always had this, from what I found through my research, they've always had this accommodating the vacationing public aspect. And in terms of short term or longer term, the zoning bylaw doesn't restrict the length of stay, and the definition of a tourist cabin also doesn't determine the length of a stay that's possible there. It is just clear about how they're to accommodate the vacationing public. And we do know that the applicants do typically rent these out by the week. So I think the tourist cabin definition fits the intent of what the applicants are looking to do on the site, and it does fit in with what I found the long-term use of these cottages being over the years.
I'll have to dig up the email. I'm actually almost positive I received an email from somebody that was evicted from there, but I can't say for certain, but I'm fairly confident that was there on a long-term basis prior to this. But I will try to find that for you. Councilor Martin, any questions?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to Ms. Caterino. I'm wondering about the operation management plan. As we heard from the residents before, a lot of the issues and concerns are you know, neighborly disputes, and not necessarily a lot. There are some, but not all, were objections to actual planning matters. So how does the operation management plan after the fact protect those residents? What is the how do our bylaw members ensure that they're in compliance with their operation management plan and so on?
Thank you. So through the mayor, it's planning staff's intention through the operation management plan that the applicants will have an opportunity to outline the steps that they would take for how they would manage their property, how they would inform any kind of guests staying on the property about our local bylaws. What's the expectation? I know I spoke to the agent and the applicants about like, what will they put up any notices in the rooms being like, 11 o'clock is quiet time, or because they will be living on the property, if there's going to be any kind of mechanism, if, they see rowdiness and it's getting late, will there be a system in place that they will also kind of do to help manage some of the complaints in that regard? They're also wanting to come up with sort of a list of, what will be acceptable on the property, just so that there are clear expectations, so that if there are members of the public that do have questions, there is like a clear understanding of, what is and isn't acceptable from the operation side of things. And if anything is outside of that scope, the operators can address it.
So through you, Mayor Chop, to Jennifer. So it's essentially just an on-site operation plan. It really genuinely doesn't have any regulations that stipulate who follows what. Like as we look to encourage tourist accommodations and grow, we don't want to add additional burdens to the remainder of the taxpayers across Norfolk through bylaw related concerns. So to clarify, that operation management plan is really just an in-house policy that you're asking them to form.
It is, but it's also in a way for them to provide a communications plan essentially for their guests, so that there is a level of expectation. If you're staying at this property, these are the rules you have to follow.
Okay, and then further clarification, the image that's on our screen right now is the actual application is 3 proposed.
Through the mayor, the applicants have proposed the 4 that you see on the screen. Through planning staff's analysis of the application and completing a site visit, it's thought that 4 could be considered overdevelopment on the site, and that 3 would be more appropriate, so that we can have, increased spacing along the front, so that it fits better with the neighborhood and reduces the number of units available for accommodations.
Great, thank you.
Councilor Van Bassen.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to staff. One thing I didn't get in my head when I was reading this report is, are the applicants accepting the staff recommendation and changes to the proposal? Because like generally you got an applicant, you got the county staff, and you've got the neighbors. You got to get at least 2 out of 3 to agree before it's going to move forward. But have they accepted your revised application?
So through the mayor, the applicants have accepted most of the recommendations from staff, with the exception of the reduction of the number of tourist cabins. So they're okay with the provisions in the zoning bylaw regarding spacing, height. They're okay with the idea that these would be accessory to the residential use. They're okay with the terminology of tourist cabin. It's my understanding they're okay with the limitation of only 1 parking space being in the front yard. The one piece we always kind of got stuck on was the number. So their business plan relies on 4 additional units. And like I mentioned previously, staff think that 4 are too many for the site, so 3 would be more appropriate.
Thank you, but I just can't understand the concept of having to go to OLT and having both the applicant and the neighbors appealing it at the same time. That makes no sense to me. So should this be referred back to staff to try to get something that is presented to council that at least 2 out of those 3 groups will agree on?
Through the mayor, I guess it's council's discretion as if you want to refer it back to staff. Based on my analysis of this application and based on the comments raised by the community, I don't know if there will ever be a compromise between the neighbors and the owner, but we can work on it for sure. But just based on the types of comments that have come out, and I think based on the temperature of the neighborhood, that might be harder. And again, I can go back with the applicants and ask them if they would like to revise their site sketch to see if 4 units or tourist cabins can be accommodated on the site. There was some reluctance to do that when I approached that topic with them previously. So we could do that and come back to you. So this recommendation in front of council today is based on our current policies and the analysis of everything that's happened to date. So.
I don't know what the other members think, but I would rather see a recommendation from staff that either that if the applicants are adamant for 4 cabins, then staff would not recommend that. If the applicant were to ask for 3, the staff would recommend that. That to me are 2 choices that I could actually decide upon, but I can't really decide upon whether, you know, the staff has one recommendation, but that's not what they're asking for. But I do have another follow-up question. The hazard lands, the arbitrary line that they draw across these lots, how much of a problem would it be to move that line at some point? Because I know like they have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars of upgrades to the possible erosion effects. And, you know, is it possible at some point the owners could apply to move that hazard land line to include the primary dwelling within the residential zone? That's not a complicated or undoable process, is it?
In this particular property, that it might be more complicated than others. There was a previous zoning application completed on this property in 2007. And that is actually the application that shifted the hazard land line because it used to come back this down under here. And in 2007, I believe the Conservation Authority had amended its mapping. So the hazard land line was recommended to be shifted up closer to Nelson Street. And at that point, the applicants agreed. Sorry, they were different owners and applicants at the time, but at that time, the applicants did agree to the shift. And in that staff report, it was made pretty clear that the existing house and this cottage would become non-conforming uses in the hazard land designation and zone. So given the history on the property, it might be more difficult in this case to do such a big adjustment to include the house and the cottage back into the R1A. But again, an investigation with the Conservation Authority would have to occur.
Okay, thank you.
This is just a hypothetical question, Jennifer, and I feel a bit funny asking this in open session, but if we were to approve this with the 3 units and they challenge it with 4, does that not weaken our case at the land planning tribunal without their agreement in advance?
Through the mayor, I don't.
Opposed to denying the application in its entirety?
So through the mayor, this question is always a bit tricky to answer. So this report is based on my professional analysis of the application, my consideration of what's appropriate in the neighborhood, and the applicants is based on the opinion of the professional planner working on, working for them. So IBI's understanding of the context of Port Dover and the policy context, they think that 4 is appropriate, where I think that 3 is appropriate. So it would really depend, I guess, on the arguments about appropriate, about compatibility, about size and scale, and the interpretation of our policies, especially the secondary plan. And it's hard to know when anything goes to OLT, what the member will decide. So this recommendation in front of council today is based on my professional opinion and assessment of all the document and material provided.
I understand that. So, but I guess this goes to Councillor Van Passen's comment, which I think is on point, which is that without their agreement right now, I hesitate if it's going to move forward to a tribunal. I hesitate without the agreement of the applicant that they would be satisfied with this approach. Then it puts us in this awkward position, like Councillor Van Passen rightly pointed out, that it would be both the potential neighbors appealing this as well as the applicant it's themselves. So we're standing out here on a limb with nobody necessarily supporting this decision from either side. So I, like Councillor Van Passen, before I was to even agree to the 3 units, I would want to know that there was even agreement from the applicant that they would be satisfied and they wouldn't be further challenging it. Because if they were going to challenge it, I might have a different opinion altogether. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. And through you, to add further confusion, I've looked into attachments E and G in the report. I had a difficult time actually finding them, so I've dug into the explanation, the purpose and effect of the bylaw. I'm on page 279 of our large package, and it refers to a total of 5 tourist cabins. And I'm not too sure if that is a typographical error, but I wouldn't mind if staff could please review attachments E and G and perhaps explain that to council and see if I've caught an error. I've heard 3 tourist cabins, 4. I'm looking at a bylaw that says 5. I'm in agreement with both her worship and my fellow colleague, Councillor Van Passen, that I think we need to send this back to staff if we can't understand what's contained in those attachments. So if staff could please respond, but I do think we need to send this back.
Thank you. So through the mayor, the 5 tourist cabins actually refers to 2 of the existing cottages, plus the 3 additional or the new ones that are being proposed. So the bylaws would recognize, 2 of these existing cottages as 2 tourist cabins, and then 3 additional would be permitted. So 5 is the correct number in that bylaw.
And if I may just follow up, and I want to ask, so is there a concern we're going to say that it's it's non-conforming use, but are we making a decision prior to discovering if this is legal non-conforming? Should we not figure out if it's legal non-conforming use for the 2 remaining before approving this application?
Through the mayor, it is planning staff's opinion that that's not necessary for this application because there are mechanisms to deal with that at a later date.
Again, I think I just want to send this back to staff. I'm in a position where I don't feel comfortable making a decision because I'm not quite sure how many tourist cabins we're approving. I'm looking at a schematic that has 4, but we're recommending 3. It would seem that this application is incomplete.
Councillor Van Der Rishi.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, through you. Just a comment that I really think that there's a lot of controversy here. At the end of the day, I think it should go back to staff and get a little bit of clarification. I would like to see if it's 3 proposed, where are they going to be proposed? So there's lack of information, and I don't think I can make a fair call on this one today. Thank you.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. I would agree, and I would also like to give some direction to staff that I do like that they looked for a bit less density here. I think it's a better fit with less. So earlier, Councillor Van Passen made a comment about the 4th, and you responded about revisiting the site sketch to get the 4 cabins in. Again, I'd be interested to see where we land with sending this back, but I did want to thank you for making a recommendation with less cabins than more.
I guess one other question too I have as we send this back to staff is just to follow up on what previous, I know we talked about this before and I believe I had asked for it, but I don't think I've seen anything in terms of the bylaw complaints that have come forward off of that property in the past. How many bylaw complaints? If what the neighbors say in their letters are true about fireworks being let off on nights that are outside of those permitted evenings. Again, I think that when there's already complaints that are on a property, you have to have a period where you demonstrate that you can, abide by those bylaws that are in place before adding additional density. My concern again is that as I see other municipalities regulate, temporary accommodations more and more, I prefer less regulation, but I don't want to see, that come to Norfolk County again because of a few sites. And I'm not suggesting that this is one of those sites because I don't know, but I know that they do exist in Norfolk County where it's a couple of bad apples again that, always sort of drive enhanced regulation. So if there are challenges that have already existed on the site in the past, if we could get a piece back from bylaw with this as well.
Through the mayor, sure, I can include that in a follow-up report. I do want to mention, if I can, when I spoke to the applicants about this specific issue, they did mention that our facility is not far from their site, and people do access the beach and set off fireworks from here. So they do feel that some of the complaints from the neighbors have been misplaced for people who may be using, the access to the water on our property versus what's occurring on their site. But I can definitely follow up with our bylaw team.
Fair enough. Thanks, Jennifer. So I guess then if I could have a motion to defer them or refer the matter, rather, I should say, back to staff. Councillor Michelle, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Okay, moving on then to staff report CD 22-060-161 zoning amendment for Wellington Avenue in Delhi.
So through the mayor, that's me again, and I'll try to keep this one a little bit more brief than the previous one. So this is an application to amend the Norfolk County zoning bylaw to permit residential uses within 100% of the first floor of a building within the central business district zone in the urban area of Delhi. So the amendment will facilitate the construction of a new 3-story rental building, providing 18 dwelling units and 16 parking spaces. 4 of the ground floor units are proposed to be constructed as accessible units. So the subject lands are located within the downtown designation within the official plan and central business zone in the zoning bylaw. So the applicants originally submitted an official plan amendment to accompany the zoning bylaw amendment. However, upon further review of the policy and the site context, it was determined that an official plan amendment was not required to facilitate this development, and the applicants have withdrawn the official plan amendment application. So this application was heard at the May 3rd, 2022 public hearing committee meeting, and comments from the committee and public have been incorporated into the review of the application. They have been summarized within the staff report. So generally, the comments provided can be addressed through site plan control, specifically because the biggest ones seem to be regarding drainage in the area. There were concerns regarding the loss of additional commercial space within the downtown area. So after reaching out to the Delhi BIA, it was noted that they do not keep a record of the vacancy rates within the downtown core, as it's constantly changing. So staff note that the subject lands are located within the south end of the downtown, adjacent to the mixed residential, commercial, and urban residential designations. Wellington Avenue is primarily a residential street where a 3-story apartment building is considered appropriate for the vacant lot. So staff support this application as it is considered to be consistent with the provincial policy statement and official plan policies, and recommend that it be approved as attached to the staff report. Thank you.
Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to Jennifer. A bit of an odd question that you may not have an answer to, but a lot of the discussion at the public hearing on this file surrounded the exemption of commercial on the ground floor due to the vacancies of commercial buildings in downtown Delhi in the central business district. And I kind of posed a question to the developer if they would look to work with the Delhi BIA and make some partnership on that level if they were so keen to not include the commercial. When you spoke with the Delhi BIA, was there any commitments to that end made or known to you or to staff?
No, there were, to my knowledge, there's no commitment to including commercial in the building at this time.
Sorry, not to include the commercial, but I'd kind of posed it as a question to the developer that they look to make a partnership with the BIA, either some cash in lieu of or something else that was a bit unorthodox, but to instead, if they were looking to not include commercial in their building, that they would reach out to the BIA and make a partnership in that way. Anything articulated to staff from that?
To my knowledge, that has not occurred. We can still reach out to the applicant to see if that is something that we can work through during the site plan control process. It might be a difficult item to include given the mechanisms that we have to ask for something like that, but we can definitely see if the applicant's willing to pursue something of that nature.
I think that's unfortunate, but the public hearing meeting, it was suggested it's obviously more beneficial for them from a financial perspective to include the residential units, but would have been nice to hear that they did make that connection with the BIA from the commercial perspective.
So are you, Councilor Van Passen, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, a question, and might be better suited to direct it to Brandon. It's not included in this report. On the original report, they had the architectural sketch of the building. And I wonder if you might pose the question to the applicant, if this is all approved and construction starts, it's 18 units, 4 barrier free on the ground floor. I wonder, as you know, part of being a good corporate citizen, once he pays architects for all the design and stuff, whether he would donate sort of those plans over to the Haldimand Norfolk Housing Corporation, that they could take a peek at it and not have to, redesign a pretty good looking building with nice small bachelor and single bedroom apartments, barrier free on the ground floor. Might be a way to help out the community by maybe throwing up a structure like that somewhere else on some vacant land that we have.
Yeah, thanks through the mayor. They definitely would be providing building elevation drawings through that site plan and the building permit, and subject to them being okay with sharing it, we definitely could do that.
So is somebody proposing an alternatives to staff's motion then, or? Go ahead.
Be happy to propose staff recommendation.
So there's a couple things you're asking for though, that
They have nothing to do with that. It would be a nice quiet conversation with the developer at some point by our staff on, what they'd be willing to do to help the community. It has nothing to do with this application, and we can't fetter the two.
oh. Well, I think to Councillor Martin's point, it is tied in with the application. It's in lieu of the commercial space, but regardless, if you're moving staff's recommendation, is there a seconder? Councillor Rabbits, any further discussion on the matter? Councillor Shelley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a little organizational note. I believe that in this report, the map on page 321 of our agenda is the incorrect map. I believe this is a map of Port Dover. It should be Delhi. And I understand, Madam Mayor, that it is corrected in the bylaws, so that's fine.
Okay. Any further discussion on the matter? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Okay, did we want to take a 5-minute break before we get into the next? So let's come back at 11:45. Thanks, Teresa. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I think we're moving on to one of the more exciting reports, staff report 22-042. That's the Haldeman Norfolk Water Supply Agreement. I guess, Andrew, is that you that's presenting that report?
Thank you. Thank you for the excitement of a report. That's always nice to hear. It is an important initiative. So the report you have in front of you today is an update on discussions we've been having between Norfolk and Haldeman County regarding the water sharing agreement. And this really is a very key component of the interurban water supply project. I do apologize, this came out last minute. We've been meeting with them right up to the wire, so we were drafting this report to get it in front of you for today. So I know we didn't have a lot of time to review it, but really trying to work as closely as we can with Haldeman to make sure we have everything right. It is a lengthy report, but kind of the important elements I'd like to draw your attention to. We're seeking approval for the financial principles, which are going to guide the discussion of this agreement. And at a high level, this includes the capital cost, operating, life cycle analysis, as well as administration. And then secondly, we're seeking approval to undertake our own independent rate study. And that's just so that we can protect the county's interest and make sure that we agree and have accurate data to bring forward to the table. Mariana has really been the face of this, and she's doing all the heavy lifting. So she's here to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions from councillors? I only had one question, Mariana, but I asked Al there, I just touched base earlier. I just wanted to confirm that administrative cost recovery. So that's the Aqua component, and that is not an administrative cost in terms of issuing the invoice.
Hello, Madam Mayor, through you. It is recognized in the industry that administering operating contracts takes time and requires a certain fee in order to have proper governance of the contract and the servicing rates. As well as the quality of the servicing provided to both Norfolk and Haldeman. So that will be a shared cost between Haldeman and Norfolk as well. We will further review how that cost will be applied and what's the breakdown of that specific cost as part of the water rate that we undertake for Norfolk, and the final water rate agreement that we're gonna agree on in 2026 when the clock will start. I hope that answers your question, Madam Mayor.
No, I'm more confused now, to be honest. So I just want to confirm again that this administrative charge is not because we are one customer that's on their system. So I want to ensure that we're not being charged a 3% administrative charge on that one bill. That's not what this is, correct?
No, that's not what this is. This is contracting administration and is not administrative cost recovery for Haldeman County staff.
And that charge will be the same as Haldeman is paying to Aqua?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Perfect. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Rabbits?
Thank you, and through you. My question is with regards to our phases here. So the figure of 2026, is that a start date or would that be the completion date of phase 1?
It's completion date of the interconnection and the start date of the servicing agreement with Haldeman. We are positioned right now to deliver the project, complete all the testing and commissioning, and start our delivery January 1st, 2026.
Very exciting. Thank you for that news. My next question is with regards to the short-term benefits. We have some comments about unfreezing development, specifically in Port Dover and Simcoe. I know it may be an unfair question to ask at this juncture in time, but what are we forecasting for the potential to lift our interim control bylaw? Do we have a ballpark figure, or is this something that would need to be looked at in 2026?
Well, this is a twofolded kind of answer. We do have the benefit of current upgrades that will come online soon, towards the end of this year and later on next year. And combined with the interurban, we will not have a ceiling as far as the development capacity goes. So through the upgrades, we will have 4,800 cubic meters per day available. Optimistic scenario mid next year.
Further questions, councillors? Yep, Councillor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not so much a question, but a comment that, yeah, it was a little late getting this report. I had to fit in some extra time last night to get through it and read it, but this is probably the most important, most expensive project that this county's ever undertaken. And, you know, I appreciate the work that staff's done, but I have full confidence in our staff that when they get all these agreements in place and some pipes in the ground, we are going to have a long-term solution to high-quality potable water for all of our urban residents. And again, I just want to say that I have complete confidence that our staff are doing the best they can and will get the best deal possible when they're done with it. So thanks for all the hard work. I think especially to Mariana, I think it's already been mentioned that you're doing all the heavy lifting on it. And I appreciate the extra work that you've put into this, and to get it as far as it has in the short time you've been with us, I do appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Van Passen.
This has definitely moved along faster, Mariana, than it ever has before. So I echo those comments. One question I do have, just in terms of that rate study, what is the forecast, I guess, on how long that's going to take? That was for a long period of time. That was one of the things that we were allegedly, at least, being held up on, was Haldeman's rate study that they were engaging in. So what kind of time frame is that going to be?
So Haldeman rate study was completed in the final draft. As far as I know, we reviewed it on time to support this council report and the final draft agreement that is proposed for approval today. We will continue to work with Haldeman to finalize the report and understand better, you know, the ins and outs of the report, and work with finance and do our own water rates. The estimated timeline for this is minimum couple months for us to better identify our capital costs, our life cycle cost recovery items, and how that is coordinated with the Haldeman existing assets, particularly to the life cycle cost recovery item.
So I guess the question is, why didn't we do, and I'm not putting this on you because you weren't here, but why would we not have done that concurrently then if we were looking for our own independent analysis? It seems far down the line when we waited. Again, I know it's not you, but I'm just kind of, if you could get into the heads of those perhaps that were here previously, why we would have ever waited on doing this.
Well, I think, Madam Mayor, through you, it's a very exciting and sizable project, and we did make a lot of progress since I took over in January. And I guess now it's becoming more and more real, and staff have more certainty in moving forward with the impact and the financial implications that this project will bring forward. I think, and forgive me if I'm a little high level in my assumption. I think now all the departments that we consulted and all the key players have a better understanding of the project and what the results will be, and we will be in a better position to move this forward at a fast pace. And I'll work with finance staff in order to move these water rates forward. To hire the consultant and provide the baseline data that is required in terms of capital costs and timelines for implementation, as well as the operating costs.
3 years after the fact, that sounds like a very diplomatic response, but thank you. Al, did you have something else you wanted to add?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I was just going to say, very diplomatic, but I would say the following, that now that we've arrived at the guiding principles in regards to what this water agreement is going to look like with Alderman, the intent now is for us to get our water rates done so that we can work with finance in terms of forecasting out from 2026 and beyond exactly what our residents can expect in terms of water rates and factoring all the best practices in terms of life cycle replacement, all of those other things that Mariana has put in the report. So in an ideal world, this would have started in 2019 and we would have been 3 or 4 years ahead of where we're at now. But good thing is we've got Marianne in place, we've got Andrew in place, and we've got the right people that are going to deliver this to our residents in an efficient and effective manner. So it's a very important step for Norfolk, and we're lucky that we're where we are today with the staff that we have.
No, I don't disagree with that at all. I think if we were lucky, we wouldn't have started this in 2019. We would have started this probably back in 2008. In any event, here we are. I guess my only other question then, Mariana, do you know who did Haldeman's rate study? I can't.
Yeah, Watson's.
Okay, so why are we using Watson then and not using a different
third party that is different?
Well, yeah, that to me, why to go and have Watson do it on both ends doesn't really make sense. It would be curious to have somebody that's, if we're going to go and spend the money and take the extra 2 months to go and do this, I'd like to see another opinion factor into the matter as opposed to the same organization.
Noted, Madam Mayor. Through you, I agree that we will have to look at options and have an independent opinion. I will take this up with our finance department.
I think that's very important. I see no, otherwise, if we're not going to do that and we're going to use Watson because we seem to use them for everything, then I actually don't support doing it then. I don't see the point of spending the money to have the same organization repeat the exercise for a different party.
Duly noted.
Any other questions from council? Okay, well, thank you very much for all your work. Thanks, Andrew, as well. And I will ask for a mover and seconder for staff's recommendation. Councillor Huffman and seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? That's carried.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our next report, that is 11.3.2 staff report EIS 22-036. That's a request for tender for the sidewalk reconstruction.
Yeah, so through the mayor, a few weeks ago, we closed our annual tender for sidewalk reconstruction at a number of locations across Norfolk County, and the lowest compliant bid came in over the approved budget. When staff got the details and reviewed that, this increased cost of approximately $300,000 was really attributed to the Cockshut Road sidewalk portion in Port Dover. So looking at that in more detail, we're recommending that we cancel the tender that's on the street right now, remove the Cockshut Road component, and then retender so that we can complete our sidewalk work in 2022. We do understand that the Cockshut Road component is very important, so we're recommending we put that into the 2023 construction project that sees additional work happening along that corridor. And we're optimistic we'll see some economies of scale and savings because it will be combined as part of a larger project. So that's the recommendation we have in front of you today. Should council wish to pursue this and complete it as part of our 2022 work, the finance department has also included some guidance on where that funding would come from, but certainly happy to take any questions you have.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Questions from council? Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to Andrew, I just heard you say the intent is to put it into the 2023 work. However, the recommendation reads that it would go into the capital plan. So I would like to amend the motion to have it read that it go into the 2023 season, and I would be happy to move that. And thanks staff for the suggestion here to be fiscally responsible, but keep the work on the books.
Seconder for Councillor Martin's motion. Thanks, Councillor Van Passen. Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, I don't want to lose half the sidewalk reconstruction that exists in Ward 4 in Victoria. So I hope we can get this retendered quickly so I can get those couple of blocks done this year. So.
Anything further? Okay, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Next is staff report DSS 22-119 Customer Relationship Manager CRM software implementation. Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. The purpose of this report is to seek approval for a single source procurement with MuniPass as part of the Salesforce CRM software implementation. Salesforce has been procured as part of a cooperative initiative in accordance with the county's purchasing policy, and Salesforce has partnered with MuniPass for implementation services for its municipal clients. I have Sam McFarlane, our Manager of Accessibility and Special Projects, and Brent Wallace, Director of Information Technology, on the call today. Both of those gentlemen are leading this implementation project. And with that, staff would be pleased to answer any questions that council may have.
Questions from council? Seeing none, somebody wish to move staff recommendation? Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thanks, Shelley. On to your next report, which is staff report CS 22-128, the SCORE Regional Short Line Rail Project.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. This report has been provided as follow-up to the SCORE deputation that was presented last week at Council and Committee regarding the Short Line Rail Project. Staff have drafted a letter of support for Council's consideration, along with recommendations based on discussions with SCORE for a funding request of $5,000 annually over the next 3 years for a total of $15,000, with funding to be provided from the tax levy initiating in 2023. Martin, I'm sorry, I lost some words there. I apologize for that. I believe that our CAO had some discussions with SCORE, and this was a recommendation through that follow-up discussion. So if I could, I'll pass it over to Al, maybe just to speak to that.
Thank you, Shelley, and through you, Madam Mayor. Discussions I had with SCORE, specifically the deputation, was that they needed two things from the county. If our procedural bylaw did not allow them to ask for financial contribution during the deputation to council, when I spoke to them, they talked about the fact that really what they needed was the letter of support so that they can secure at least 50% grant funding from other levels of government. And what they needed from the various municipalities and the counties in and around where this short line is going to go was a proportionate share, and our share was $15,000 that they required, $5,000 a year for 3 years. So that's how you got to the 15,000.
Thanks for that explanation, Al. I get what happened. The deputation couldn't request funding because it wasn't budget time. So we didn't discuss the funding and therefore only discussed the letter of support. Okay, that makes sense.
Councilor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And there is a bit more to it. The short line rail operator that proposed to take it over, or actually they have reopened the line. The letter of support is to try to get a grant. It's about a $6.5 million upgrade that they need to get those lines back to standards. 50% of that is available potentially through a federal grant. So the letter of support was important. I think the discussions are still ongoing. Like there is potential that that rail line could run back as far as Cortland again. And I think our economic development people are in discussions with the SCORE, which is an economic development corporation on its own, but there is potential, and I think planning would be involved, that, you know, there is potential that our official plans and zoning bylaws could be adjusted to designate some more industrial land along that rail line in the on the west side of Cortland. So there is a lot of potential out there, but if you know, the discussion is not finalized on whether that is going to be done or not done, and I'm sure the mayor has made SCORE well aware of, we needed a bit more detail on the overall big plan and whether it's worth it to Norfolk County to support that financially. So that part has not quite been finalized, but as the CAO has mentioned, that potentially if we set it aside in future budgets and those discussions are fruitful, we will require that. So always better to plan ahead than to be hit at the last minute. Thank you.
Further questions from council? Somebody wish to move the staff recommendation? Seconder. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, moving on to item number 12, that's the bylaws. Does any council member wish to speak to any of the bylaws before us for approval? If I could have a mover to approve the following bylaws: bylaw 4 OP 2022, 16Z 2022, 18Z 2022 to 20Z 2022 inclusive, 2022-32, 2022-49, 2022-50, 2022-54 to 2022-57 inclusive, and bylaw 2022-59. Mover and seconder, Councillor Rabbit, seconded by Councillor Huffman. All those in favor? That is carried. Motion number is item number 13. That was already dealt with. Moving on to notices of motion. Councillor Michelli, if you would like to read your notice of motion.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Before I do, Madam Mayor, I would like to ask that Council waive the rules of procedure through a 2/3 vote to allow this notice of motion to be considered as a motion on today's agenda.
Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Huffman. All those in favor? That's carried.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. May I read that motion now?
Absolutely. Floor is yours.
Whereas the Government of Canada continues to be committed to a renewed nation-to-nation relationship with Indigenous peoples based on recognition of rights, respect, cooperation, and partnership. And whereas the Truth and Reconciliation Commission issued 94 calls to action, 5 of which involve municipal governments. And whereas all orders of government have a role to play in reconciliation, the municipal leaders are being looked to set the tone and be part of the constructive societal change in building Indigenous, local, intergovernmental partnerships that are needed and expected. And whereas municipalities are not the Crown and therefore do not have the constitutional authority to address the range of issues arising from Aboriginal and treaty rights, but are able to be better neighbors and partners with Indigenous nations and communities. And whereas relationship agreements can be helpful in developing mutual understanding and ongoing conversations. And whereas the goal of a relationship agreement is to establish a long-term relationship of practical cooperation and commitment that respects Indigenous nations and communities. The motion is that now, therefore, be it resolved that Norfolk County is committed to strengthening relationships with Indigenous nations and community to help ensure greater social equity, and that staff be directed to investigate the development of an intergovernmental relationship agreement with neighboring Indigenous nations and communities on areas of mutual interest such as economic recovery, tourism, and environmental issues. And further, that a report related to this matter be brought back for Council's consideration.
Seconder for Councillor Michelli's motion, Councillor Huffman. I just have a question, Councillor Michelli. So I'm not really sure what it is out of this motion that you're looking for specifically. Are you looking for an agreement that's going to provide funding?
No, Madam Mayor, I don't believe this is in any way connected to funding. The general intent of at this time is once we get a report back from Council, I'm hoping that they will be able to craft some kind of wording that might be used at certain county-sponsored occasions, and also that there is a recognition of the fact that we will be, whenever possible, working with our Indigenous communities to outline in those examples that are provided there, economic development and tourism and that kind of thing as partnerships, so that there is a relationship between what the county does with recognition that we are better with our Indigenous partners.
So can you give me an example of where Norfolk would sort of fit in, what we would be doing to collaborate on economic recovery as an example?
Well, Madam Mayor, I think that I would be hoping that a lot of that information would come from the staff report, but I do think that there are a lot of opportunities that we could have in discussions with Indigenous communities. They have, as a quick example, perhaps, that they are moving very well with their broadband internet projects, as Norfolk County is also. And I'm hoping that over time, partnerships and relationships could be fostered in those areas. I would leave it though to the staff report to come back with more detail about those kinds of relationships. I guess I just want to reiterate that this is in no way connected to land claims or treaty rights, but rather to a recognition. And I believe, just generally speaking, with respect to those other items, I think that whatever we can do, if we can take some action in our communities to champion that message of truth and reconciliation, I think it's just a very, very appropriate thing for us to do all year long, not just on Orange Shirt Day and not just on Indigenous Peoples Day, which is today, as we all know. And so that kind of relationship that we have with them happens every day.
I think probably one of the biggest steps that Norfolk County will be engaged in as part of the expansion of the Nanticoke water treatment plant will also be looking to service the Six Nations community. So that will probably be actually one of the biggest steps forward beyond, words on paper. But is there any further discussion on the motion? Councilor Martin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to Councilor Michelli, because we have discussed similar subject matter and it hasn't quite progressed. Do you have a timeline in mind for when you'd like the staff report to come back?
Madam Mayor, if I may, yeah, thank you, Councillor Martin. I frankly would like this report to come back. I would hope that we could get this report before their summer recess, but I know that that's a short timeline. So I'm going to suggest that perhaps this is the first thing that we get back when we return from our summer recess. I'll ask perhaps our CAO if he thinks that's a reasonable timeline.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we can certainly explore the options. I mean, we can certainly bring something back for your first meeting after the summer break in regards to the parameters of what something like this would look like. We haven't sort of gone out there and pursued it with any of the neighboring communities, seeing exactly their appetite for something like this. So we can certainly put some parameters in place. Council can then look at that, and if council's quite content with what we're proposing, we can then reach out to the neighboring Indigenous communities and see whether there's a reciprocal appetite for something like this, and then we can bring that back to council.
Thank you, Al.
Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Opposed? Moving on to general announcements. Are there any general announcements from councillors? Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. On this Saturday, June 25th in Port Dover, 10:30 until 2:30 at the Port Dover Library, there is a cash-only art sale, and all of the funds are used to support Ukrainian refugees. And while community members are out and about every Saturday at St. Paul's Anglican Church on St. George Street, there is a furniture drop-off and shopping location that is run through a not-for-profit volunteer group, and they donate all of the proceeds to youth programming and children's programming. Most recently, they just bought, I think, 5, I could be wrong, it might be 10 tents for the Girl Guides, because when they go camping, because of COVID, they can't cram as many of them into tents anymore. So I bought a beautiful antique dresser on the weekend for $40. It's great. So I highly recommend you drop by.
Okay, thanks, Councilor Martin. Anything further from anyone? Okay, Councilor Hoffman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Chop, through you. I just felt it would be remiss, I guess, not to mention that unfortunately in Norfolk County, we've suffered a lot of tragedy on the roadways in the last few weeks. I must say that as a councillor in Ward 7, I receive a numerous amounts of calls and emails regarding lack of people following speed limits and the rules of the road. And I just beg of everyone to let these tragedies be the last ones that we experience in Norfolk County in the next near future. And please obey all of the laws of the road, and let's keep each other safe out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Huffman. Anything further from council? In that case, then, if I could have a motion on bylaw 2022-58, that's a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of Norfolk County at this regular council meeting held on the 21st day of June 2022, and that the bylaw be approved, signed by the mayor and clerk, and affixed with corporate seal. Councillor Abbott, seconded by Councillor Shelley. All those in favor? Thank you. That's carried. And finally, a motion to adjourn. Councillor Huffman, thanks, and seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? That is carried.